I'm so happy you're loving the place I got you, my dear. As if it were just another cozy family moment, Grandpa smiled across the brunch table and held up his mimosa. The air became quiet. Mid-sip, I froze. My throat is stinging from the orange juice. People from everywhere flocked to me. My mother's painted lips opened in perplexity. From her phone, my sister raised her head. My dad dropped his fork too. It clinked sharply against the porcelain plate. The silence thickened, and I could feel my heartbeat behind my eyes. I looked up at Grandpa after looking down and wiping my hands on the napkin on my lap. With a whisper, "I live in a basement," I said. His grin wavered. I responded, "What?" "I never got any apartment," more loudly. I even spoke steadily. I had no intention of crying here. Not after all these years. A silence fell like a shroud of storms. It was palpable in my bones. Grandpa asked, blinking slowly, "What are you talking about?" After watching the entire video, don't forget to tell us what you would do in this situation. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where you are from and which city you're watching our videos from. Tell the truth. Tell me in the space provided below. Every comment is read by us. Let's get started. The space moved. My mother grabbed her coffee, hands shaking just enough to let a drop fall. My sister's chewing ceased. As if he had something caught in his throat, Dad coughed and then went for his drink. Truth? Maybe. I scrutinized each one. "You never sent me anything, Grandpa," I remarked coolly once more. Grandpa pushed his chair back a few inches and whispered, "Wait, hold on. I've been living in a windowless basement for 4 years. The only gift I've received from this family in 10 years was silence. 4 years ago, I sent your dad the down payment. After graduation, he told me, he surprised you with it." My mouth became parched. I forced myself to breathe, even though it made my spine tingle. Dad was looking pallid. My mother slowly turned to him, ashen. She continued, "You said you helped her find a cute place downtown," in a strained whisper. "Dad?" I said, seeing his eyes. His body shifted uneasily. "I intended to." "No," I interrupted. "You intended to keep it." Someone's mouth dropped open in a gulp. Grandpa leaned back in his chair, his knuckles white against the table's edge, and his lips squeezed together. He appeared to have taken a sucker punch. My voice was sharp yet steady as I sat up taller. "You advised me to put in more effort and to cease anticipating favors. While you pocketed the money intended to give me a start, you allowed me to clean other people's floors during that time. Now the air was poisonous, hot and thick. Unspoken truths crackled in it. With trembling hands and a racing heart, I got to my feet. I didn't want to say anything today, but perhaps it's time for us all to stop acting like we're celebrating birthdays. I then left. Chairs screamed back behind me. Footsteps stumbled. I continued. Although there was silence in the restaurant's exterior hallway, the anger that was building inside of me was anything but. From that table, I could still feel every eye on me. They finally deserved the shock, the shame, and the discomfort. I refrained from crying, not now. I heard footsteps behind me when I arrived at the parking lot. Quick ones. "Hold on, Kayla!" Grandpa yelled. I pivoted. 20 minutes ago, he didn't look as young. Something I hadn't seen in years took the place of his smile. Pure, unadulterated grief. "Really, you were never given the apartment." I gave a head shake. "The woman who rents me her basement smokes so much that the walls are yellow. Beside my bed is a boiler. She doesn't trust banks, so I paid my rent in cash. I can't remember how many times I've sat on the floor to eat dinner." He took a swallow. "You didn't want help, according to your father. Show you were acting on your own initiative." My chest lifted. "Try flipping burgers first. Builds character." Grandpa's eyes flicked down when I asked him once for a job lead. "You were ungrateful," he remarked, "that you didn't even thank him when you moved into your ideal home." I let out an irritated laugh. I had no idea he had anything for which to be grateful. He sighed and rubbed a palm across his face. I had faith in him. I didn't respond. I didn't sense the length of the silence. Then he made a statement that caught me off guard. "I'd like to make this right." I crossed my arms. "How?" "I'd like to see your residence." I jerked my head up. "Why?" "Because he took from us both if it's as horrible as you describe, which I think it is. I'm also done allowing people to deceive me. I took Grandpa to my house that night. As I walked him down the deteriorating side steps to the basement door, he remained silent. As I unlocked it, the above light flickered. We were met with the smell of dampness and old cigarettes. I moved out of the way. "Greetings from my palace." He entered and gently surveyed the room, taking in the worn-out couch, the leaning bookcase, the discolored ceiling tiles, and the small bed next to the washing machine. It took a few seconds for his face to shift. The saddest breath I've ever heard came from him as he sat on the edge of my bed. "You have been living in this." Since college was over, I nodded. His eyes grew blurry. "He claimed to be reserving the remainder for your nuptials. At the time, I felt it made sense. No rest is available." I spoke in a flat tone. "He received $70,000 from you. As soon as that money entered his account, it vanished." Grandpa turned from me to the floor and back again. "No more," he said. "We're heading to the bank and the lawyer tomorrow," he continued, adding, "and then I think your dad and I need to have a very long conversation." I didn't smile, but something inside of me changed, like I had finally broken the glass that everyone had been staring at. Grandpa was on the phone with his lawyer when I got up the following morning, and I could smell the stench of burnt coffee. "Even if it's Sunday, I don't care. Look for the documentation, Howard. Please write a statement indicating that I no longer permit Daniel Whitmore to operate on my behalf in any financial capacity. I also want every transfer and cent tracked down." He spoke in a tone I had never heard him employ before, not even when his father had crashed his truck in high school or when his mother had accidentally forgotten his prescription. This was not like the others. I listened in quiet while standing barefoot on the chilly concrete floor of the corridor. Something that had lain asleep inside of me felt awake. We were seated in a clean, wood-paneled office downtown by lunchtime. In order to secure an urgent appointment, Grandpa had to pull strings. The banker, a conservative woman in her 50s, squeezed her lips firmly as she browsed through the information on her screen. At last, she adjusted her spectacles and observed, "I do see the transfer here. Daniel Whitmore, your son, received a gift for Kayla's condo from Mr. Whitmore's account." She swiveled the screen in our direction. The precise amount was there, along with the date. Grandpa was telling the truth. Then she clicked once more. My heart fell. 5 days later, it displayed another transfer, this time showing my dad had transferred the whole sum into a different investment account in his name. Nothing, no letter, no reference to me. In my lap, my hands clenched into fists. Grandpa silently gazed at the computer before asking calmly, "Can I get a printed copy of all that?" "Yes, sir." Grandpa turned to face me when she had moved away. "He betrayed you and he lied to me. This isn't just family drama, Kayla. It's theft." I nodded slowly. "Don't worry," he added. "I'll handle it," but I shook my head. "No," I said quietly. "We'll handle it." That afternoon, we drove straight to my parents' house. I hadn't set foot there in years. The same house where I used to decorate cupcakes with Mom. Where Dad once taught me how to ride a bike before he started ignoring my calls. Where my sister threw a party the week I moved out and left my stuff on the lawn. Grandpa rang the doorbell. Dad opened it half confused, half annoyed. His eyes widened when he saw both of us. "We need to talk," Grandpa said, voice firm. "I'm kind of busy. Take a seat." Grandfather didn't speak louder. He didn't have to. We all gathered in the living room while Mom hovered in the background, her brows furrowed, and my sister peered down the staircase, sensing tension like a vulture. Grandpa put a thick folder on the coffee table, but he didn't even look at it. "You told me that Kayla was living in the apartment I bought her, but the money never made it there. You took it, you stole it, and you lied to me and your daughter." Dad laughed nervously. "Come on, Dad. You're blowing this out of proportion. I was holding it for her future." "Don't. Just don't lie again. You told me that I was entitled and lazy and that I didn't deserve help, while you were living off the money that was supposed to give me a chance." "I've already spoken to Howard," Mom whispered. "But you're going to pay back every cent, and you're going to explain yourself in front of the family at the next brunch. No more secrets. No more pretending you're some noble father." Dad's jaw tightened as Grandpa opened the folder and slid the papers toward him. He said, "Nothing. Quiet." Grandpa then turned to me and said, "You'll move in with me next week." I've already called the realtor. We'll find you a proper place to live. I gave Dad one last look, but he was unable to meet my gaze. The man who had once told me, "You'll never make it without me," now appeared small and was trembling under the weight of reality. I didn't feel like I had won. Instead, I felt liberated. My sister wore sunglasses indoors as if she didn't want to see what was going to happen, and Grandpa stood up before anyone could pretend this was a typical Sunday. "I'm going to keep this short," he said, his voice sharp and loud enough for the entire room to quiet. The next Sunday brunch was held at the same restaurant, same table, same faces, but I was seated beside Grandpa this time at the head, his hand resting lightly on mine as we waited for everyone to arrive. Dad looked like he had aged 5 years in a week, and his usual fake charm was gone. I discovered last week that a serious injustice was committed in my name. Therefore, I've invited everyone to come. I sent Kayla money from my own savings years ago to help her transition into adulthood. I was informed that she got it. I was informed that she was doing well. He swiveled in my direction. That was untrue. The room became silent. Mid-pour, a server froze. I forced myself to hold back the burn behind my eyes as I looked up. It had nothing to do with crying. "No more," Grandpa went on. "That money was taken by Daniel. He invested it, concealed it, and then silently allowed his daughter to suffer while feeling reliant, lethargic, and undeserving. All the while acting like a responsible parent. The family members who sat around us were swept away by a flood of murmuring. My aunt let out a gasp. My cousin was obviously putting things together as he blinked rapidly. My father moved about in his chair. Grandpa now turned to face him. "You deceived us both, and you will not touch another smell of my estate from now on. All assets, trusts, and upcoming transactions are undergoing restructuring. It's no longer your privilege." Grandpa then carefully took a folded piece of paper out of his jacket and placed it in front of him. "Please read this aloud to me." Dad regarded the paper as if it were poison. Grandpa's voice grew piercing. He opened the letter with shaking hands now, and as he read it, his voice cracked with each line. "I took from my daughter, Kayla Whitmore, according to my relatives. I stole money intended for her future and misrepresented its use. She, my father, and the integrity of this family have all been harmed by me. I agree to take full responsibility and repay the entire sum in 6 months. I sincerely apologize. There was only a big collective breath when he was done, no applause or gasps, and I didn't feel little when I looked at my father for the first time in years. I experienced a sense of being seen, and I stood with Grandpa under the stars on the porch that evening at his house. "I still can't believe you never asked for anything," he replied. "I was done asking," I said in response. He gave a nod. "Sorry, I didn't check sooner." "I'm not," I replied after pausing. He grinned slightly and said, "Because I now know who's really in my corner." "You will not return to that dungeon." "I understand." He added, "I found a place for you." Downtown with lightwood floors and real windows, I laughed quietly. That sounds like a mansion already. Perhaps I did, but more than anything, I deserved to stop fighting for scraps. The new apartment had windows from floor to ceiling, and the first morning I woke up, the sun came in as if it had been waiting for me. I didn't hear my landlady swearing at her dog through the wall or the pipes moaning next to my head. I just sat on the edge of my new bed, a real bed, not a used futon, and gazed out at the city skyline. I wasn't used to seeing the sky this way. I wasn't used to feeling secure. That day, I began something I had put away years ago. I opened my laptop and dusted off the folder labeled Designs, which I used to conceal behind bills and job applications. And inside were the layouts and sketches I once thought would become my career, before the world told me that stability was more important than passion, before my dad said, "It's cute," after looking at my portfolio. But when will you start taking things seriously? I started to take things seriously, applying to freelance networks and design firms and even starting a modest web portfolio. Weeks went by, then months. And one afternoon I received a call from a local architecture firm that had seen my submissions and was starting a new community housing project. They needed someone who could think creatively and understand making the most of small spaces. So I smiled and told them I've lived that. I wore the same beige coat my mom used to call cheap and childish, and when I first entered their downtown office, the receptionist offered me water, and the creative director offered me a seat. I had a contract by the end of the meeting, which was more than just a job. It was proof that I was never the failure they made me out to be, that living in a basement did not make me inferior to anyone. Months later, I had the opportunity to host brunch, not at someone else's house, not in a restaurant, but at my own, with real plates, real laughter, and real sunlight streaming through the windows. Grandpa brought flowers and placed them in the vase I had purchased with my first paycheck. And my cousin, who used to roll her eyes when I discussed my artwork, leaned in and inquired about color schemes and mood boards. As I passed around a tray of fresh scones, I noticed Grandpa watching me with a gentle smile on his face. "This," he said, "this is what I imagined." Dad wasn't there. He hadn't returned since the day of the letter. He paid the money back on time, but the apologies remained on paper, which I didn't mind because sometimes the best part of all is when someone is absent. I also touched his hand.